In this lesson, we'll talk about masking. Masking in After Effects is extremely important and helpful when it comes to combining multiple layers together, or cutting a hole on one layer so you can see through it, or isolating a specific portion of the layer. Let's have a look at how it works. In this clip, we have these windows at the back, and let's say we want to change the contents of these windows so that we can see a different layer. Now for that, we use masking. Let me show you how it works. I'm going to zoom into these windows first by holding down Alt and then scrolling in. And I'm going to press space to bring this somewhere in the center like this. And maybe we can start from this window here. Now the aim here is to cut a hole where the content of the window is, so that we can see something else instead of what we are seeing now. Now to do that, you need to make sure that the layer is selected first, and this is the first step in creating a mask, making sure that the layer is selected. And then you go to either the pen tool here, or next to it is a rectangle tool. Now inside the rectangle tool, if you click and hold it down, you have these other shapes as well. But we'll start with the basic rectangle tool first. So I'll just go and select it. And again, making sure that this layer is selected, I'm going to go and start from one of these corners and then just drag a rectangle towards the opposite corner. And we don't have to be very precise here, so I'll just let go here. And we just created a mask. Now the reason why everything turned black is because these areas are now transparent. If I turn the transparency grid, we can see that they are transparent indeed. And this is actually doing exactly the opposite of what we want. We want the content of this to be invisible or transparent, but everything else to be visible. Well, as soon as you create the mask, you see in the layers panel here, you'll have your mask, and this is called mask 1. Let's go and change the name of this to window 1. And next to it, there's a button, it says inverted. If I go and turn this button on, it's now going to invert the mask so that whatever was visible before is going to be invisible, and the invisible parts are now going to be visible. Now inside of this area, I now see the checkerboard pattern, which means I can replace this with something else by simply placing that something else underneath this layer. But before we do that, let's go and refine this mask. And in order to do that, I'm going to get my selection tool. Right now, all the points on the mask are selected, which means if I click on one, the whole thing will move at the same time. So I'm going to press Command Z. I'm going to click outside once or inside once, doesn't matter, so that the points are now deselected, which means I can now click on a single point and it will only move that point and nothing else. Let's zoom right in. I can now click on this point and then drag this to that corner, and then I hold down spacebar to go up, and then I'll move this one to this corner, and then spacebar again to pan around here, and then I'll just push this one to go here. I'll then zoom out by pressing Shift//. And now if I click outside, the outline of the mask will disappear, and I can now see the checkerboard pattern here perfectly. I have a different image here that I'll use, it's called the background, so I'm just going to click and drag this here. And now you can see that image through that masked area. I can now move my background left, right, up and down. If I just click and drag this, you see I'm seeing a different part of that image now. Let's say I will leave it here. I can make this a bit smaller actually, with the Shift key as well, so it's not breaking the proportions. Then I'll place it somewhere here. Now let's keep adding a couple of more masks so I can show you the settings on those masks. So let me zoom in. And I'm going to get my rectangle tool again. And again, I need to make sure that the layer I want to apply the mask to is selected. It's the masking sample layer. I'm just going to draw another rectangle starting from here, all the way down to the bottom right corner. And I'll let go. And right now, you see nothing's happening. Because this mask, let's actually call this window 2. Now the reason why nothing seems to be happening is because the second mask, window 2, is set to the mode add. It was the same for the first one, but that didn't matter because it was the only mask then. But now what I need to do is to set the second mask and every other mask after that to be subtract. So this is the mode of the mask. So it's now being subtracted from the rest of the masks. So if I now get to my selection tool and then click inside or outside to deselect these points, then I can click on each point one by one and then move them where I want them to be. Let me zoom in again so we can do this precisely. If it's a little difficult to see the color of the mask because of the background color maybe, you can just go and change it by clicking on this color swatch. If I click on this color swatch, go to let's say a red mask, it's now going to make it easier to see what's happening there. So I'm going to go to this side, click and drag this around, and then come down. And then drag this around as well. I'll ignore this bottle for now, pretend it's not there. I'll go here, and I'll just push this here as well. And in order to see the result without the outline of the mask, you come and click on this button, or you press Command Shift H. If I press Command-Shift-H, it does the same thing. Let me hide it. And I'm going to zoom out. And now I got that one masked as well. Let's have a look at some of the settings of the mask. Let me zoom in. You see that the edge of the mask looks very sharp. If I zoom in a bit more, if you compare this edge to this edge, this is the original one, this is the masked version, this looks very sharp. You can control the sharpness here by going into the mask, and there are a couple of options here. The mask feather is the softness of the edges. If I click and drag this towards right, you see how the edges are getting softer or sharper as I go left. So I'm going to add maybe 2 pixels of feather here so that it's a little soft. The other options you have here are the mask opacity, so this is going to make the mask invisible or visible, or the mask expansion, so this changes the size of the mask, so it expands the mask or it shrinks it. Let's zoom out to see what's happening here. So mask expansion does this. And of course you can keyframe all of these as well. There's a stopwatch next to it, which means you can keyframe this. I'm going to undo that. And again, so we're back to square one. I'll add a bit of feather to the first mask as well, so this isn't too sharp either. So I'll go to the mask here, go to feather, maybe I'll set this to 2 as well. So it softens the edges of this as well now. And now if I zoom out, and then select the bottom clip, I can now move this anywhere I like, and you see that it will be visible inside those windows. Of course there's more work to be done here. Firstly I would do some color correction, and then maybe I would blur this out a little bit. And then I'd create these reflections as well by using maybe some solids and effects. But that's a subject for a different lesson. In this lesson, we only looked at how the masks are created and then edited in the timeline here.